I will Professor Kwame Bediako of Akrofi. I went and chose that mentor. Incidentally, he died too early for me. By 84 or so, he had died. And his name is Francis Schaeffer. And the kind of question I asked you, those are the kind of questions he asked you. And through Francis Schaeffer, I learned how to reason. And I learned how to reason in a very systematic manner and how to reason really well. Because through the kind of questions you will ask yourself, it will help you to go back to scriptures. Because the scriptures are the final authority. So when there are conflicting things that are confronting you, if you have reasoned well, you must always go back to the scriptures, because the scriptures will answer to the things that are worrying you if you go back to the scriptures. Amen. So, and let me tell you something. The reason why I went to Francis Schaeffer. I went to Francis Schaeffer because one of my greatest admirers was Billy Graham. Incidentally, it was Dr. Billy Graham who sponsored my first trip to Europe in 1986 when we went for the Itinerant Evangelist Conference in Amsterdam. And I admired Dr. Billy Graham so much. In the early 80s, I always say that I have about 3 or 4 mentors. And I will share them with you. I have 3 or 4 mentors. And Dr. Billy Graham in 1947, he had been preaching around. You know, when you come to the 20th century, he's the greatest preacher in the 20th century. Even above the Smith Wigglesworth, the Kenneth Hagins, and everything. So I went for Dr. Billy Graham for a reason. I went for him because of integrity. Through him, I learned integrity. Integrity in ministry. You must never compromise on integrity in ministry. And in 1947, Dr. Billy Graham said he met someone an authority figure in the Christian faith. He met Dr. Stephen Olford. And I had been listening to, in the late 70s up to the early 80s, I had been listening to Dr. Stephen Olford. Every Sunday, Radio Elwa. And he will come and preach. During those days, we will switch to shortwave. Now we have FM. Shortwave 2. And Dr. Stephen Olford will come and preach. And he was a great theologian, a great preacher in everything. And Dr. Billy Graham looked up to Stephen Olford. And he went to him. Then Dr. Billy Graham was a very popular preacher, but he went to Stephen Olford to teach him how to have an impact in speaking or whenever he was preaching. And you know what Dr. Stephen Olford told him? He told him, never forget about the cross, because the cross is the center of power. He said, never depart from the cross. Every message of yours must have reference to the cross. It's not about money. When you talk about the cross, the money will come. Because the man behind the cross will provide the resources. He said, always talk about the cross. Because the cross is the center. Because when you talk about the cross, you'll be talking about Jesus. And today, nobody wants to hear the name Jesus. Even in Israel, they are trying to enact a bill that will throw people into jail for trying to speak about Jesus. You can talk about anything. You can evangelize using anything. You can say,